Okay, our next group of images starts out with Elizabeth's work. Love the low vantage point that she has brought to the table in this image. I think the colors in the foreground are very fascinating and interesting. Love the juxtaposition of the shed and the little play area in the background. And her adjustments here, we've got some areas that she wants to go darker, some areas that she wants to go lighter. I'm not sure this area in the foreground, I would go too much darker, but let's take a look at what it looks like afterwards. And so for me, this image feels much colder. I almost feel the shivers of winter in this image. Perhaps that is because it's got kind of a bluish cast to it, but boy, I almost love the brightness of the colors here. It feels like you want to go dive in those leaves and throw them up in the air, where here they kind of feel a little bit dark and ominous rather than bright and cheerful. So ultimately, it comes down to your intent. Do you want this to be more of a upbeat, happier photo, or do you want it to be a little bit full of melancholy and sadness to see the seasons pass and kind of move to winter? That being said, technically speaking, I think you did a good job with the burning and dodging in this image and your Photoshop adjustments. All I think have been technically applied very good. So it's really just more of a matter of aesthetics. Do you want that sort of bright, cheerful feel, or do you want to work with a little bit of a darker feeling? And again, that's more of a personal decision, and you just have to look at your body of work and see where you want to go with it. You want everything to say the same thing. So if your images are upbeat, I might stick with the way you had it originally. If your images are a little bit more somber and saying goodbye to the seasons, I probably would opt for this version. But in either case, solid job here with your Photoshop interpretation. So well done. And next up we have Heather's work. And we can see in Heather's images that she wants to lighten the puffy area of the clouds, darken up the sky, darken up the trees, and keep the road the same. I think on the surface, those all look like pretty good starting points. Perhaps I might darken up this little area in the lower left-hand corner. But let's see the adjusted version. And again, pretty solid job. I might opt for just perhaps a little bit darker in the sky here. Sort of just like that in that area. Just bring a little more emphasis to those clouds. And oops, let me get. Okay, sorry about that. Phone call has been answered, and back to the image here. The one thing we could do in this image, as I did mention, I think we can kind of darken that lower left-hand corner up a bit. Again, pretty much the same technique there. We would do a multiply and invert it. Just maybe darken it up a teeny bit, dial that opacity back. And then we'll show you one more trick. If we go into our curves layer again, we can actually bring a little bit of contrast out in this road that I think would really emphasize these cracks in here. So I'm going to make a curves adjustment layer, click on this little finger here, go to the white area of the road and push it up like that. And then release your mouse and then go to one of the darker areas of the road. So kind of in one of these cracks here, push it down like that. And then again, we're going to invert that. You can see how it's kind of flat and, you know, just all sort of one tonality. And then just we go in and invert the layer, then put our mouse across it, and we can see before and then after. Really a subtle adjustment, but you can see how that really makes that road stand out in the image. So I think that's it for that image. Good job, and we'll see you next week. Oh, we had one last image from Heather. I'm sorry. This was also for her project image, which was not landscape photography. So low point of view on the shoes. I like that a lot. I think it brings out this texture that we see especially in the toe area and in the laces. It very much has sort of a very gritty look to it that I think works very well. The one thing here, Heather, you didn't include a statement, and I would have liked to just hear your reflections upon how this image works in with your project and what you've done with it to support that. So just again, you know, I'm not looking for a huge essay, but just a couple sentences that give me a better insight into what you're doing with your image making. That way I can better connect it to what you're doing. So don't forget to write about your images when you submit them. All set then. Okay, next on our list is Jesse's images. Jesse, what am I going to do here? This is probably about as big of cliche of a shot as I could possibly think of. So that being said, your adjustments on here are pretty right on the money. We darken that sky up a little bit, especially the sun area that's getting pretty washed out there. We add some reds in there, darken the water, and screening the water will give us some good detail in the ripples there. And here's your adjusted version. Technically really strong. Have no complaints about what you have done in Photoshop here. I think the finessing you've done to the image really works well. I even like how these little vignettes now are coming into the camera. You know, it's kind of like when you look into the sun, you squint a little bit, and I think this image communicates that. Of course, that being said, you know, I keep pounding on everybody to avoid cliches, and there's probably one image that if you Googled Buffalo Lighthouse, you would probably see, you know, 1,000 images very close to this. So again, Jesse, I want you to continue to think about ways that you can create images that don't necessarily look like images that have been made by other people. So I'm not sure if I have a perfect answer for you on this, other than to just be aware of what other people are doing and try not to repeat it. So keep that in mind as you do images next week. Okay, so next up we have Kelly's work, and again, her map here looks pretty right on the money. You know, this is solid exposure. Love how she has the, I don't know what we'd call this little tiki hut or whatever that is, silhouetted against the sky. I think that works really well. Good exposure on the sky. We've got some texture in the clouds. Picked a really good day to go out and shoot. So from that point of view, I think right on the money. And then the adjustments here, you know, again, there wasn't a lot to address in this photograph, so what she did, I think, is pretty spot on. The one thing that I would call attention to is this little tiki hut is kind of blurry if you zoom in on it. And we can tell it's blurry because we've kind of got like this little, I guess we'd call it sort of a mirror or an extra little area, and we can see it on top of the water there, stuff like that. All that stuff is what is causing that to look not very sharp and in focus. So we could go ahead and take a look at the file info here, and I'm willing to bet that our shutter setting is very slow, which it is, 1/5 of a second. So in this case, I'm willing to suggest that either a tripod wasn't used and it needed to be used here, or there was just some motion. Maybe it was really windy out and the tripod was shaking. In any case, what you really want to do is on your LCD screen on your camera, really zoom in on your shot and make sure all the details are sharp, especially when you're doing stuff that you have long exposures. And of course, if you didn't use a tripod on this, at 1/5 of a second, tripod is a must. You're almost never going to be able to get a sharp image just by hand holding the camera at 1/5 of a second. 1/5 of a second is a very, very, very slow exposure. So that is what's going on over here. Otherwise, super photo, like what you got going on here. I think it works really well. So last but not least is Christina's image. And I think, Christina, you have really done a good job of identifying all the issues that need to be addressed. And here, definitely we want this tree to be a little bit darker and bring out some of the color that is sort of washed out there. And certainly by darkening the grass in the lower left, that is going to push the visual weight towards the center of the frame and therefore into the interesting area, which is this creek that is running through the photograph. Love the composition. I think you really set up this frame in a very pleasing and wonderful manner. The one thing that you need to be aware of, I don't know if you even saw it, but kind of this ugly dumpster in the left-hand corner of the frame. That is definitely something that I think works against everything else that you have going on in this image. So, got to pay attention to everything within that frame. Very important. So,